Big Ambitions is out on early access, and Reggie and the boys were intrigued by this one. A game that is currently sitting at overwhelmingly positive on the Steam ratings, whereby you get to be the big dog of the business world and have New York as your playground. You start out as a lowly little cretin of a human, but with sheer determination, you can own huge businesses and have profits that would make Jeff Bezos wet himself. So why is it then, with all the great reviews, all the promise and intrigue that this game possesses, that Reggie finds it somewhat irritating? Well, grab yourself a cuppa and let's have a chat. Welcome back, my Cockney gang, and today it's Big Ambitions. As ever, with all my early access reviews, I want to state that yes, things will break, yes, things will be glitchy, and of course, yes, things most definitely will change for final release. So the review score today is based on what they are charging and what you get for your money. Now, Reggie would argue there isn't enough business simulators out there where I can work staff to the bone and skim the cream from the top. So Big Ambitions was right up my street, as it reminds me of my racketeering days. You start out with a rather basic character selection screen where everyone appears to have had some sort of back alley surgery that took place in a pitch black room. I, of course, had my Reggie look like a proper lad, an older and wiser specimen who clearly had seen some troubles in his time, including a few too many Big Macs. Alas, after making your character, the story tells you that you are in fact an 18-year-old who has lost everything. So I had inadvertently created a Benjamin Butty Reggie. But fear not, because your slippery uncle sorts you out proper and gives you a place to stay and guides you through the opening sections. And it's here immediately that the good stuff rolls, and it's frankly a rather inspired choice by the developers of Guard Games. You see, by taking on this isometric approach, it lends itself more to a point and click style adventure game than it does a business game, and it really does work well. It has a certain style with it, a certain charm, if you will, as you progress through the game. It's a wonderful little backdrop to the overlay of menu upon menu that delivers you the critical information on how pissed off your workers are from the businesses that you own. We can discuss more later in the graphical section of the review, but straight off the bat, Reggie was liking what he saw. However, just like eating a dodgy kebab, things start out good but eventually get a bit messy. To start, the game tells you to buy some food and a fridge to store it in. Not quite what I had in mind for a business simulator, but I'm willing to let it slide for the purposes of roleplay, just like date night with the trouble and strife. And then you go to the shops and have to actually pick out the item you want from the bloody shelf, and alas, you can't click cool unless you pick up the actual shopping basket to put your sandwich in. At this point, it feels more like The Sims than it does a business sim, and as you buy your sandwich, you actually have to queue. Yes, people, queue up like the British do. Here I am buying a sandwich as I wait for my turn to be served, and so you just stare at the screen, unable to do sod all as you wait your turn. And the car you eventually drive about is cumbersome to move, and you must park it in the right area or get fined. For me, I think this nonsense just needs to be ripped from the game, or at least the option to skip it, as they really do slow things down, and that is fundamentally one of Big Ambition's biggest faults, in that its pacing is all off. There is a huge playground here, but the slow pace puts a dampener on things, and it might take you a solid 3 hours before you even get to open a second business, and you're just bogged down going from location to location, buying item after item, trying to keep your energy up and hunger levels down, all whilst using your left mouse button to constantly click to move your character, where it's all too easy to accidentally click one of the menus on screens. It's infuriating at times, and the good stuff is ruined by the nonsense. As for businesses though, there is plenty to say, and this is why I see so much potential in Big Ambitions. You can see the demand of goods by each neighbourhood and decide what could be a good investment. The game pushes you to open up a cheap gift store, but as you progress through the game you'll have a wealth of opportunities. What's great here is that each store can be customised with a logo, with a placement of items like the cash register, the products, the shelving. It's all there, people, and if you like to create in games as much as you do manage, then this could be a good mix for you. Given its early access, it's already an impressive offering of how many businesses you can invest in. Likewise, when it comes to actually managing each store, you can promote it via a marketing campaign to bump up demand, and of course you need to keep those customers happy with good staff. So if you go to a recruitment agency, and here you can select candidates based on their needs. Reggie, for example, quite liked hiring a load of part-time workers, as it meant he could stay open longer. In particular, his Reggie McBurger store, where I had just one burger stand in a massive shop, but I still made a tidy profit. What is great here is the feedback. Developers provide you a lot of information via the apps on your phone, where you can see what hours are the most profitable, and so you base your schedule around it. Now, I may have not gone far enough into the game as yet, but I did find the stocking of goods a pain in the arse as I bowled it around the streets trying to find the right warehouse that stocked my goods. I'm sure as I dive in further, I'll be able to have this part automated. However, again, just as you start getting stuck into the business management aspects, your character gets hungry and off you go to try and find food, and before you know it, you need sleep. I decided in the end to go to the local store and buy a shitload of wine, and so my morning routine consisted of smashing back 4 bottles of plonk to get my energy levels up high, where I'd then drive to my business and manage the shift myself. I could only dream of the mayhem my little Reggie was causing. Graphically, it's a very nice interface. I mentioned already the isometric view, and it adds flair to proceedings because you'll be spending a lot of time in various menus digesting a lot of information. New York itself is empty, however, but it's only early access, and I suspect this will improve in time because right now it feels like the city is back in COVID lockdown. What is particularly impressive is how practically every building can be clicked on, where you can make an offer to buy or rent it out, and so the map itself is a wonderful crafted little tool for you, and it really just amplifies out what a great job the team have done on the UI and indeed the art style. I will say though that a little additional graphical oomph wouldn't go amiss here. As nice as the colour palette is, it never feels alive. People move way too slow, so some particle effects, weather, some better shadowing will just add some real depth to the screen. Sound wise, it's not great, it's clearly in its early days, but there is no richness here, no diverse beats to make your eardrums sing with delight. The sound effects that do exist feel lo-fi, recorded perhaps on an old Nokia phone and uploaded to Napster. It's all low effort stuff, with only the soundtrack of the radio being a wake up call when you actually enter your car. It's a bit repetitive though, but I do appreciate that they work this in, even though the driving is such a redundant and frustrating way to converse around the city. So there is much for the developers to include here. So Big Ambitions then is one that has big potential, but for Reggie, it sits on a pivotal part of its development. They have two choices here. They can double down on the RPG elements and make the micromanaging of your character even more in depth, where I wouldn't be surprised that they eventually request you need to go do a shit and you have to manually wipe the arse. Or they can put it back. Strip out some of the nonsense like queuing up for goods or having you go get a shopping cart, and instead double down on the business simulator features. Make that part feel far more alive, with greater emphasis on staffing seasonal challenges to each business, and indeed making those businesses come to life. For $25 or so, it's a solid start, and the score as of today reflects that. Dependent on what direction this game goes though, in a couple of years this score could easily go up, or it could easily go down. Such is the life of a real business, I guess. Until next time, my lovelies, Reggie out.